Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
I wanted an awkward transition, but this is getting weird.
Greetings and salutations, all ye faithful Gentiles of the seven-headed golden giraffe. Today with me I have my two greatest friends, Ian Haddington, also known as Sidbot2, and Mr. Alec Laboy, also known as Esplin227. And with me, we shall be discussing the subject of the cross-pollination of genres in both comic books and the overall popular culture. For example, we will be I will be mainly focusing on comic books and how movies and video games, both the storytelling aspects, influence comic books and especially the visual styles. And I'm pretty sure these two will find some, incredibly intelligent and thoughtful things to say on the subject. Anyway, gentlemen, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it sounds like such an interesting topic, and I've been thinking about this all week, and, at first, me, I'm such an idea person. At first, the big ones started to pop into my head, when you see lyrics to songs in comic books, or when you see entire genres of, art crossing over with each other, when you see, paintings and really good photography featured in a film or something like that. And then the more I thought about it, this topic also applies to just genres and fiction kind of colliding. And I mean, we get it in comics and in TV and film, and more in comics, less in TV, much less in film, but it's still all there.
I think comics are the perfect place for ideas and references and genres to germinate and create something completely and utterly different from their source material.
Oh, I'd agree. How about you, Alec? I know Alec. I feel so bad for Alec. He's kind of thrown in on this topic without any time to prepare. But Alec, say something insightful now.
Okay. When I think about the cross-pollination of genres, unfortunately, I don't read as much comics, so I can't say anything for the comic world, but I can say that Western media tends to be a little bit too focused on the demographics they're going for. The first thing that comes to mind is anime. I can think of 50 anime examples off the top of my head. For instance, Trigun.
Oh, I love Trigun.
Exactly, a Western. I don't even.
And I've been watching Firefly lately. Or I just finished watching all of Firefly lately too. So.
See, I haven't seen Firefly, which is everyone's like, you haven't seen Firefly, and I'm like, no.
Well, here's the thing.
Alec.
It's a good show, but I don't know why people were surprised it got canceled. It's just such a weird premise. I don't know why everyone was like, I can't believe this got pulled off of the main airwaves.
Point in case, Western
sci-fi. I mean, it makes perfect sense the way they.
No. I mean Western as in America and stuff.
Oh.
We are not willing to keep anything on the air that doesn't hit a very specific demographic. That's why anime was the first thing that came to mind, because the only I'll say that now science fiction seems to be coming back, that is sci-fi for sci-fi's sake, but it's still mostly action movies that happen to have a sci-fi premise.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of anime, they'll do really crazy, really off the wall things, and now I've gone retarded. Yeah.
I think basically with your example on anime and with Trigun and stuff, but I don't know. Are you trying to say that America really kind of embraces the more the type of shows that have something to do with its main pop cultural influence? Like the Japan is fascinated with with American culture. I mean, especially the infusion of cowboys and
Well, that's
not,
what I mean.
yeah.
They don't just make westerns. They'll have something like Trigun, which is a western in space. How
Mm.
many American things will do that? And if they do, how long do they survive? They really don't survive very long over here, because if they're not making a certain amount of money within a certain amount of time, they're very quickly pulled off the air. The thing is what I meant
So
by in America we're less willing to do that is we're much less willing to take risks on sort of off the wall ideas unless it's the Sci-Fi Channel, and they
But I
kind
mean, the
of
Sci-Fi Channel doesn't even really take risks. It's the same movie
yeah,
over.
exactly. That's the problem. Um,
It's just, oh my god, a giant monster. Like, here's the thing, the Sci-Fi Channel would be so much more successful if they just did the entire movie, like, tongue-in-cheek, and no one took it seriously. It's like, holy fuck, it's a giant piranha! That's incredible! Oh my god, I know! It's just like if they just talked about how awesome the premise of the movie was, it would sell those movies so much better.
with with movies like see, it's interesting that in modern Hollywood now, I'm seeing that there's a sort of a weird coming back of the old '70s sci-fi films, not the Star Wars kind, because the '70s sci-fi films was more of a weird psychedelia, more sci-fi for sci-fi's sake, and giving
Like what? Give me an
like
example of what's out right now that's doing that, or what's
Oblivion.
out within
Oblivion.
last.
I knew you were gonna say Oblivion.
I haven't seen it.
I understand what you're saying.
I've
You're
heard
saying,
it,
but
actually.
I think some of that has to do with nowadays people are obsessed with post-apocalyptic wastelands.
Yeah,
That was really big in the 80s, and now that's coming back, and that already by default lends itself to sci-fi. It's just a very sci-fi concept.
like what's going on in Oblivion? Because I haven't seen anything about this.
You want to tell him, or should I?
I haven't seen Oblivion, but from the trailer, it seems like, your classic "the world ended" and
Wait, is that the one with Tom Cruise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Now I've seen that. I'm sorry. I've seen trailers for that. That looks very forgettable to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
I've heard I heard the movies. The trailers kind of doesn't give the movie justice, because I heard the first half of the film is just this. Basically, it's about a astronaut who becomes a handyman after the world is destroyed by aliens, apparently. And they won the war, but basically the planet Earth has been decimated. And it just basically he goes out and fixes up the droids who go out and basically repair shit and hunt down the alien scum who are left the planet, but just the scallywags stayed behind. And so it's kind of like Wall-E meets fucking, I don't know, handyman from space.
That actually sounds interesting.
The builder in space. No, I hadn't heard anything about that, or like I saw the trailer and just I don't know. Has Tom Cruise been in any good movies since Vanilla Sky?
I heard this is a really good one because with the whole jumping up and down on the couches and just losing his shit about Scientology, all that stuff aside, he's a weird motherfucking.
No, I'm just talking about the movies. I don't give a fuck about his personality. I'm just like, has he been in anything good since Vanilla Sky?
Jack Reacher.
No. I said good movies. Not him playing the fucking guy from Mission Impossible again.
I know. I heard he's actually really good at this movie, and I really want to see it in 3D because it looks like it really lends itself to that.
Maybe. I don't know. It always depends whether or not they shot it in 3D. Never go see a post-converted movie. It always looks like shit. Just because, like, it's just the way in which it's shot does not lend itself to 3D if it's converted in post, because this is worth explaining because I've talked about it a billion times but never recorded before. When you're filming something, you create the illusion of depth, and the way you do that is if you want to make it look like your character is coming toward the audience, he runs toward the camera and then goes off at the last possible second. So that way you're seeing more of him, so it creates the illusion of depth even though it's a 2D image. With 3D, he actually goes straight into the audience and you switch over to essentially a CG model that's actually flying out toward the audience. So when you're converting a 2D movie to post, you can't do that because the character is going off screen.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Another important thing to remember is if we're talking about proper stereoscopic 3D, when you film it, you should have a camera that's two cameras placed slightly off. That is, and you can do that artificially afterwards, but it's never going to look as good.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You have to film it the way the eye looks, where you have two slightly overlapping cameras. But
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a matter of that. That's just worth talking about.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it depends how CG heavy your movie is. Like, Green Lantern in 3D actually did look kind of good because most of the constructs and, like, the monsters and stuff were coming directly off the screen since so much of that movie was added in post. But traditionally, movies that aren't, shot in 3D look terrible once you put them in. And like, they always pick the most random objects. Like, I saw Thor in 3D, and like, they just chose, there's that one shot when Natalie Portman and her friends are sitting on top of the diner, and like, that spire on top of the building. They just chose, we'll put that in 3D. Why? It's so random.
Anyway, guys, this is not
Yeah, I
3D.
think I
This is not
remember.
3D. We're not talking about 3D. So
yeah.
I'm going to talk about a little bit about cross-pollination of sci-fi and comic books. Yes, sci-fi and comic books in sci-fi story. Yeah.
Watch. Go
What are
on.
you
I'm
doing?
sorry.
Mike, you gotta talk to somebody.
Basically, sci-fi and comic books have been bedfellows for quite a long time now. Well, from the very beginning, because, like I mentioned before, comic books really kind of embraces any type of genre, and kind of with superheroes, I think it kind of blends them in all together in this one giant porridge of goodiness. But it's interesting, like when I think comic books are a perfect tool to tell these kind of stories because it has the benefits of having the cinematography aspect of movies, where basically it can incorporate those type of visual storytelling techniques
Elements.
into the storytelling.
Can I
And
ask something?
I'll finish and then you can
Oh,
talk.
okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to get this thought out of my head before it kind of escapes. So it can incorporate these, almost filmic movie storytelling techniques with the visual art, because in comic books, unlike movies, you have an unlimited budget. The only way it's limited is by, well, the imagination and the skill of your artist, and the proficiency of your colorer. While also in comic books, you also have the benefit of the long novel, because in movies you can't really go into the deeper detail of what the characters are thinking, or the deeper aspects of their personal philosophies or what have you, unless it's like some sort of artsy European art film. But
Like unless it's like the 4-hour cut of Watchmen.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But basically, you can also have that same literary techniques of in comic books that help define the characters a lot more and gives the story a lot more meat and length. So you got the perfect combination of visual storytelling techniques and literary storytelling techniques. This one perfect baby that people have been ignoring for so long, and now that it's reached adulthood, it's, well, at least late adolescent, adulthood, it has the ability to, I at least think, be somewhat greater than both in many aspects.
Yeah.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, the problem is it's just it's getting people to take it seriously. And I mean, it's made leaps and bounds of progress there. But to me, people in the Western world are never going to take comic books seriously until we can get them to take animation seriously. Which, again, leaps and bounds over the last couple of years, but still. cartoons are for kids, as it were.
Yeah, but I think that only has to do with the old fuddy-duddy critics. Because if you take what the internet tells us, and that the younger generation of movie geeks and comic book geeks and basic art fans, they're starting to get a little bit savvy more to the they
Yeah,
appreciate.
like I said, I think we'll
yeah.
get there. One, I think we'll get there. I'm just saying it's going to take a while, which is the biggest problem with comic books. Is it's going to take. Long.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Sure.
I have to disagree. I don't think we're there yet, but I think that's comic book writers' fault. I can't remember what comic book it was, but it was a hilariously failed attempt at being mature, just ham-handed sexuality. But anyway, my point is
Was it Batman and Robin by Frank Miller?
I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is that a lot of comic book people, when they reference comic books, how parts of it need to grow up. They mention that specifically with things like sexuality, because it seems like a kid trying to draw what he thinks is the idea of a mature comic. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sort of like how games were rated mature, but they were all that really meant was excessive violence. But the thing about I just want to clarify this ahead of time. When you mention comics, you're not counting comics as a genre, right?
Well, like,
because comics are not a genre. Comics are a medium, just like anime is not a genre. A genre would be like sci-fi, western,
but
action. It's just not genre. The problem is if we start counting that as genre, then virtually every story in existence is a cross-pollination of genre.
And I get that. I'm just saying, like, you can say music, like, you can talk about medium and genre, but at the same time, when I'm going to use Watchmen as the example because it's the clearest in my head right now. You can read Watchmen, and suddenly you see lyrics to an Iggy Pop song playing from a boombox from somebody's radio, right? And that to me is a cross-pollination of these two mediums, but it doesn't sound the same because at that point it is genres crossing. To me, when you got comic books, what was it? Oh, the 4-hour cut of Watchmen. You actually saw a guy reading a comic book there, and that became part of the movie. That would be, to me at least, it's the mediums crossing, but I don't think the language is wrong to call that genre crossing.
Actually,
I don't know. It depends.
Alec,
because...
I just want to answer, Alec, before we move on, I'm just sorry. You were saying about the kind of uptight sexuality of some comic books.
It's not uptight sexuality. It's
I know. I just wanna get at my thoughts before we move on. So because if I tell it like after you guys stop talking, it'll be irrelevant to the point you made, like all those sentences ago. But anyway, because you guys like tangents. But anyway,
sorry.
I think it's okay. We love the tangents here, but I think the comic book you read, I'm pretty sure the way you described it was from the 90s, and I think with the British invasion and with the growing up of some comic book writers, I think especially reading some comic books now, comics have really become kind of sexually relaxed. I mean, you have more openly gay comic book characters that aren't like exploitative. You have a lot more, kind of adult relationships.
I'd agree with you to a point. It depends on the book. Well, depends on the book, depends on the writer. But yeah.
Well, what I know is you always got to remember to give the media, I'd say, the general population 10 years, because it's like video games. People are like, video games are becoming a, real. Well, actually, at this point, they pretty much are. But video games had already done those things before people caught up to it. What happens is people people who already enjoy a medium instantly see it becoming more mature, whereas obviously people outside that medium take longer to say, oh, look, this is actually pretty mature looking. I think I'm going to get into that. So yeah, I understand that comic books have grown up. It's that there's always a 10-year lag
Right. I understand what you're
Like
saying.
anime, it took 10 years for people to realize that anime hadn't been just Pokemon for a while, at least in America. Of course, in Japan, it's been that way for, you know, like, I showed someone, Cowboy Bebop, and,
Oh god, I love Tank.
Cowboy Bebop is just, I don't even, there's no words. But anyway,
I think Cowboy
you know
Bebop
what? There
kind of.
actually is no words because it took away every other word I was going to say. I can't remember. So I guess it's an accurate assessment.
I get what you're saying. Is it takes time for medium's maturity to be recognized by the public.
Yeah,
I'd agree
because Cowboy
with you
Bebop to me is still one of the best things in general I have ever seen. You know, other people might not agree, but there's a reason why it's won more awards than most animes ever made. Like, it's just so goddamn good.
I know, but I think it should be replacing Evangelion now, because Evangelion is just kind of ended up being a giant middle finger to the fans of anime in general. But
Wait, what do you...
but basically, watching Evangelion, it started out cool, and the one thing I gotta say about that show, it gives a great sense of unstoppable apocalypse. It's the best piece of anything that I've seen that it was able to inspire how it would actually feel to be at the end of the world. But it just, at the end of it, it just seemed, it went really kind of, meta, and basically just at the end it just basically Ray telling all the fans, all the fat otaku, saying you're subhuman idiots who can't grow up, and it just ended up being one giant middle finger to the otakus.
Well,
which is kind of
yeah, you're talking about that very last episode. You know what's great? It got even better because the maker of Evangelion got so much hate mail. He literally got death threats. Because I understand that episode. It's just we needed to understand what happened to the characters. But here's the thing. Did you see the movies?
The one. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Something like Something After Birth, and then the final one. Have you seen them, Ian?
No, I haven't even watched anything beyond Cowboy Bebop's intro. I just love Tank. Well,
we're talking about Evangelion.
Oh. See, I completely lost you along the way there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, the reason...
Sorry, I just like Tank.
Oh, yeah. No, it's an amazing opening. And the fact that you haven't seen anything past that is obscene, and, yeah, I think I have to stab you now. Yeah. So, sorry about this, but stab. No. No, seriously, you need to watch Cowboy Bebop, and...
I find with anime, just to kind of get back to the topic a little bit, for me personally, it always takes about 3 really good, solid episodes in a row for me to enjoy an anime.
Okay, well then, you'll be enjoying Cowboy Bebop at episode 3 then.
What I'm just saying is...
Literally one of the best...
Yeah, I understand that it's good. I understand that. It's just, I have to, have nothing else to watch 3 times in a row. That's what does it. That's what happened with Yu Yu Hakusho, that's what happened with Trigun.
Don't ever compare Cowboy Bebop.
I'm not comparing them, I'm just saying that's how I got into that show.
Just making sure. Also, Yu Yu Hakusho was a little bit more... Like, I put things like Cowboy Bebop and Trigun miles above Yu Yu Hakusho.
Well, no, I loved Trigun, but I'm just saying, I'm naming animes I got into.
Oh, okay.
Trigun I loved, and it took, like I said, it took me 3 episodes. Rurouni Kenshin Manslayer, something I loved, but it took a couple episodes in a row where nothing else was on. And, thank God for Toonami, where nothing else was on for me to get into it. And I haven't had that opportunity with Cowboy Bebop. And there's also my whole thing about when someone tells me something's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to watch it.
You're one of those?
Well, no, just, now I have expectations for it.
Yeah, and it's...
I watch it, and it's, not as good as I was told. Because
it
can ever be the most amazing thing I'm ever going to see in my entire life.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're going to think it's... I'm saying, for me, it's... I don't know, something about it. I just love it. I mean, I don't think it's the best thing ever made. I'm
Mhm.
exaggerating, obviously, but
No, I get you. I'm just
I'll
that's
go out on a
that's
limb
just
and
my
say
defense.
it's the best anime I've ever seen.
Well,
That's just my
basically,
defense for not watching Cowboy Bebop.
yeah. So as Sid, you're just kind of you're scared of having something be overblown for you, and then it just kind of falls flat to reach your expectations.
It happens to me constantly. I'll have
Mm.
someone like I was going to go watch Skyfall because I saw the trailers. I'm like, this actually looks really fun, and I'm not a James Bond fan, but this looks enjoyable. And then like the reviews of it started coming out, and people were like, it's the most amazing James Bond film ever made. Oh my god, it's so good. I'm like, I don't want to see this movie anymore because it can't be that good.
See,
Um,
with me, I don't have that problem because I just don't listen to people.
yeah, but I can't choose not to listen to people. I hear you say it,
Yeah.
and then immediately I go, well, I respect his opinion, so I
Yeah.
believe him that it's going to be pretty good, but I just don't believe that it's going to be that good.
Yeah,
So
It's not
it's
gonna be.
an
It's not gonna be
automatic-
Ian Harrington. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be.
it's more of a defense mechanism because like I don't want to go into something thinking it's going to be good and then not enjoy it, and then when people ask me, I'd rather say I haven't seen Skyfall than say I didn't like Skyfall.
Yeah. No, I understand. My dad, the same thing happens to my dad. Basically, it either happens to you or it doesn't. For instance, gaming reviews. The same thing happens to me, but the other way with bad reviews. When I see a bad review, I tend to focus on. My mind is looking for those problems in the game, and if you give a bad review of the game, I'll probably view it much less favorably than I would have. It's not like it lowers my expectations. It actually, for some people it lowers expectations. For me, it actually does make me notice those things that are bad with it. Whereas for a lot of people, it's the opposite. They'd rather hear a bad review and then play it, and they're like, it wasn't that bad. Me,
See, for me, it's not necessarily like specific things. Like when I hear a bad review, I actually tend to enjoy something more.
yeah,
Which
see,
is why I enjoyed the Wonder Woman pilot so much, because like I just heard horrible things about it. I'm like, I sat down and go, okay, there's no way it's going to be the worst thing I ever watch in my entire life. And I watched it, and I'm like, there's a lot of bad stuff here, but I enjoyed it.
yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, it just depends on, that's an automatic thing. That I just happen to be the opposite in that. Like,
Yeah.
if I hear a good review, I'm not more likely to enjoy it, but I am more. I mean, not a good review, bad review.
Yeah, that makes sense. But anyway,
it-
let's
yeah.
get back to the topic. Milan said something a little bit ago, and I did want to comment on it. I think it was Cap I heard this from, and it was a really insightful point. Comic books, particularly superheroes, if we look at superheroes as an entire genre, it kind of has the best job of mixing all these different styles of storytelling depending on your hero. And like I think the best one to look to for this is Justice League, or at the very least the main DC 3 or 4. You got Batman, and there's your your crime, your detective stories.
And
You
your
got-
horror too. Your subconscious
Yeah,
terror. and all that
horror and stuff. But and then you got Wonder Woman, and there's your like fantasy and your mythic things. You got Green Lantern, and there's your like space operas and your crazy like Star Wars kind of style stuff. And then you got Superman, and there's your like more kind of just wacky sci-fi stuff.
Also, some weird thing. There's always kind of a really interesting humanist strain through the stories as well.
Yeah, I'm just talking about main genre,
Right.
that it would fall into. If I were to have to classify Superman as a whole into one genre, there's a wealth of these goofy sci-fi things right up there with Star Trek and Doctor Who that I would throw Superman in.
Oh,
before
definitely, yeah.
anything else. So that's kind of where I was going with that. And you got other members of the Justice League that kind of dabble in each of those things. Like you got Aquaman, and he's this weird blend of wacky sci-fi and fantasy.
I think he's more royal succession drama.
Yeah, you got a little bit of that Game of Thrones fantasy.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the fantasy element of it too. But then, like, Aquaman has really wacky sci-fi adventures as well. You know what I mean?
Really? Not anymore.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, there's
I don't
often
know.
like,
I couldn't be caught dead reading Aquaman. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
He's a
I
shitty
would,
character.
Screw you. Aquaman's badass.
Aquaman is an example of comic book writers' odd desire to stick to a formula. His name is Aquaman. You're telling me in the 50 years he's existed, no one thought, hey, no one gives a shit about him anyway. Why don't we make him able to control water?
well, like the thing
Yeah.
that I like that they
Yeah,
did with-
exactly. They didn't, so they're dumbasses, and I'm not buying their
Actually,
comics.
that's what his wife
Oh,
does.
hold up a second. Hold up.
Hold on, Alec.
Yeah,
That's what his wife does. Actually, oddly enough.
that's retarded. Or I guess not retarded, but it's retarded that he doesn't do it.
Anyway, Aquaman, I mean, they did something cool with him in the 90s. I enjoyed that arc where he was like this, you know, royal kind of spoiled brat thing, and he was like always getting ready to declare war. So you had these interesting foreign politics kind of things with, you know,
Huh.
fake countries. That could have worked, but they didn't stick with it for some reason.
It seems like anything that would make Aquaman interesting, you would definitely stick with it at all costs.
Oh.
I don't know, that's the kind of thing they went with the Justice League show, and I really enjoyed him in that.
All right, you guys keep talking. I have to get something right quick. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
It's
Uh,
okay.
But yeah, well, that's just something that I'd heard before, and it made me think about it. You know, superheroes are like a genre unto themselves. It could be argued definitely, and yet they each kind of have their, depending on the hero you've got, you have your own kind of little genre in and of itself, right?
Definitely, yeah. But with superheroes, it gives you an opportunity to blend genres that you would think that would never go together.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think that's where some of this wacky stuff's come from, like, you know, cowboys and aliens, and like Grant Morrison's obviously the king of it, but let's try not to talk about him, shall we?
Okay, I think it's just I think from all that wackiness where it comes from, basically with comic books, the gloves are off, and basically whatever thing you want to make, the artist can make it all fit into the panel. So you can see a cowboy next to a space alien, and if the artist is good enough, he can just make those two guys fit in the same world. Well, at least
Yeah.
seem to be drawn like they belong to the same world, like, you know, the time traveling bubble. It all fits, and this kind of
Yeah, I mean,
weird.
there's one Legion of Superheroes. That's just the wackiest premise in the world. Because I mean, like, all right, we already have, you know, this futuristic, you know, robot alien, or like he's a robot, but it's biologically based computer, and he's got, you know, these wacky companions. I'm pretty sure there was a monkey there for a while, and they travel through time because fuck it, why not?
I think it was kind of Boy Scouts, well, you know, kind of not just Boy Scouts, but, you know, Kid Scouts, but in the 31st century, but with teens. But it's just, I think it's that kind of aspect of goodness. I think it's mainly have to do with the tone. Basically, when the gloves are off and you can do basically anything you want, the main kind of real challenge to it is balancing the tone of just having this extreme whimsy with a sort of, if you want to have a strain of seriousness in your stories, you can. But the thing is, it's really difficult when really unnerving, or not unnerving, but really annoying when I see like some writers, they're trying to take these, you know, naturally whimsical, you know, ideas, and kind of try to chain them to like genuinely like things that don't go together, like, you know, like, hey, time travel, and see, it's really hard to find a good example.
Time travel in Victorian France, because why not?
No, not. See, I think I just painted myself in the corner.
Well, no, I was going with Doctor Who there, because Bill and I just talked about the girl at the fireplace. So there were like these steampunk.
Let me get my.
I think I saw that. There was a little girl. He sees her, and then he comes back like a minute later, and she's grown up.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but-
no, there's
but,
there's these steampunk clockwork robots, and they're time traveling to Victorian era France because fuck it, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know it is, but I'm trying to. What I meant is like when there's a really tough balancing act when you you have these whimsical ideas in nature, like the time bubble and what have you, and it's really interesting. It really does test the writer, seeing you have this naturally whimsical thing, but you also
Oh, I definitely agree. I think that's the one thing comic books are best at, just making something... I was talking about that today, even. Making something that shouldn't work at all genuinely compelling. And
yes, that's right.
I'm going to go to Jeff Johns and what he did with Green Lantern over the last couple of years. I mean, here's the basic outline of what happened leading up to Blackest Night. Okay, Alec, you haven't been reading Green Lantern. Here's the idea. I mean, Green Lantern, hard enough premise to accept on its own, right? It's a ring that creates whatever the fuck you imagine out of green light. Okay. Weird, right? Now, I'm going to introduce all the other colors of the rainbow, and they're going to fight each other. That shouldn't work. But then you read it, and it's amazing. And, like, you're, like, actually, like, really, like, flipping pages trying to get to the end of this because you want to know how it ends. You're, like, genuinely compelled to see how the story ends because the characterization works so well and just, you know, wacky premise. And it became, like, genuinely epic. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess the same thing can be said with Star Wars. I mean, what is it? It's basically a samurai quote / knight story, but in space.
Mm-hmm.
It's a space opera.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a premise that shouldn't work at all until you see it.
Exactly.
And then you realize that the conceit never matters. It's all about the writer and the characters.
I know.
You know, as long as you have a good writer, strong characters, and a decent plot, you can make any premise work.
I think it has to do. I think that's why so many good movies don't get made, because Hollywood is just so limited in its vision. So, especially when you describe some of these things, you sound like a fucking idiot. Like,
No, I mean that's the thing. That's what I love to do with just anything I read that's really wacky. I try to do my tweet summation. Just like, if I can summarize this movie in a tweet, how would I do it? And so it's easy to do with, you know, certain movie. It's like Mission Impossible, spy saves world, done. But then I get to like wackier movies like I don't know, Looper. That's just such a strange premise. Hitman tries to kill future self, doesn't work. It's just, you get the stranger premise, the more fun it is to try to do. Like, give me a couple movies. We're gonna try a couple of these.
The Room.
No. Give me good movies.
The Cell.
Haven't seen it. Wait, no, is that the one with the aliens?
No, it's the one with the serial killer's brain.
Oh, no, still haven't seen that, sorry. I was thinking of Species. Okay, let me try Species.
Species.
Okay. Alien takes over people's bodies and the world.
Okay,
That works.
How about this? Star Trek.
Just, you gotta be... Are you talking about the 2009 movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Romulans accidentally travel back in time and fuck up everything. See, that was a good sentence, because then the Trek fans can take that sentence however they please. When I say fuck up everything, they can be like, oh yeah, he doesn't like that movie just like me, now I like this guy. Or they can be like, yeah, it's true. Or if you actually enjoy that movie, you can be like, yeah, it's true, they really did mess up the timeline, it was really clever.
You didn't like the Star Trek movie?
What?
I like it. It was okay.
I enjoyed it. As not a Trek fan, I enjoyed it. The funniest thing to watch, because it's so accurate, is The Onion did a video about that movie, and they're like, Star Trek fans upset that new Star Trek movie has mass appeal and isn't boring.
Yeah.
And anytime I talk to somebody about it, that's like a hardcore Trekkie, they're like, that movie sucks. And I go, why? Because it has mass appeal and it's not boring.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the Star Trek fan punches you in your little face.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna actually try to get into Star Trek, but I still enjoyed the movie. And, like, the thing is, someone talked to me about it and goes, if you enjoyed that movie, you didn't enjoy Star Trek. And I disagree with that premise, because I've never had any against Star
I
Trek.
liked,
It's just
and I also enjoyed that Star Trek movie.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of
I think
people hated all of Rick Berman's stuff after he took over for Gene Roddenberry. It's just people don't like change, and it's like, I'm sorry, there are issues with Star Trek. It can be a little bit boring sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's probably the Star Wars movie is with the Star Wars prequels. Parts of them were trying to be Star Trek. You know, Star Wars is not the place where we want to see galactic
Politicals.
politics play out.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's the main reason people didn't like the 2009 one was because those people were tired of just the unending just barrage of lens flares burning
See,
their
I actually
retinas.
like lens flare used in CG because it gives it depth and makes it look more realistic. Because it what it essentially does is it makes it look like you're actually filming this stuff, as opposed
I
to
know,
just
but
adding
he
it in.
just, dude, he had I counted like 75 lens flare shots in the background of the fucking in the ship.
I don't
Why
care.
would you have?
I enjoy it personally. I enjoy lens flare.
I do too,
you know,
but I do. Motivation.
I enjoy
I
lens
just
flare.
got back. Are you talking about the intense lens flare?
Yeah, I enjoy lens flare when it happens by accident because there's a shot in my movie and it's when Matt is walking into the video store and you can see it happen and there's just like this fucking sexy ass lens flare that gets on the camera and every time I see that shot I just go, damn, that's a sexy shot. And I think Matt is uncomfortable by that because in that shot, you know, we happen to be seeing like the back of him walk away from the camera. So I think he thinks I'm talking about like his ass, but no, I'm talking about that goddamn sexy ass lens flare that happens for there's no reason that there needs to be lens flare there. It just happened completely by accident, and it looks amazing. So I enjoy lens flare. I think it adds just a cool look to the shot.
Yeah. No,
Personally.
I liked the look of the Star Trek movie. I mean, I think they did go a little bit overboard sometimes with the lens flare in the bridge.
I actually can't wait to see Star Wars with lens flare, just because I want to see the lightsabers. Like, you know, that's the one thing. Even in the prequels, they never really looked like they were on screen. You know, you could tell it was added. The lens flare really should sell that, because I've seen a couple fan films doing it as, like, you know, parody, but it looks really good. So I'm excited for that, to be honest.
For what?
J.J. Abrams is doing the new Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
So he's going to add lens flare, and that means we'll get lens flare on lightsabers, so that'll be cool.
It's funny. Movie Bob is so mad. You've seen Movie Bob, right?
I haven't. I've heard of him.
He hated the Star Trek movie. He's like, it was ashamed of its own source material. It's like, it should be. Nemesis was a terrible movie. Sorry, it just was. It was just
And
an
then I
all
lose
bad
subscribe.
movie.
Don't criticize things people love. This is
Hey,
a show.
Data either died or he didn't. You can't do that pussied out half sacrifice himself, because that means his sacrifice didn't mean anything. Also, it does the thing American cinema does so much, and I hate it so much, where in a series, if things change too much, they have to reset things. Data was changing and growing too much, so clearly you have to reset him to the way he was at the beginning of the Next Generation. Oh my god.
Oh my dude, it's the That's So Raven syndrome. It's in that show,
is so
literally.
Raven. Sorry.
No, let me explain.
Sorry, I
That's a
apologize.
Raven. It's okay. That's a Raven. It's a show that I grew up on. It was terrible. Did I look back at it now? But the one thing that just made me scream at the TV screen is just nothing ever changed. They fucking worked to make sure everything stayed at the status quo. Even when one of the characters was going off to college, they shamed him into not going to that college because it would separate them.
Yeah.
I'm like, you just destroy that man's education. Fuck you. Oh my god.
No, there was
Nothing must
character
change.
development. Milan, there was character development. You know, that show went on so that we got eventually one of the greatest additions to American television history, Corey into House.
Ori the house.
You never saw that?
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
Oh my god.
Let me explain that. So That's So Raven was a really forgivable show where, you know, Raven Baxter was a psychic, and it was a really dumb premise, but whatever. It was harmless enough. And she had a little brother who was like an evil genius or whatever. And then apparently Raven Baxter like outgrew the show. So they decided that they're going to make a spin-off with Corey, her brother, and their father. And here's the entire premise. The president liked Corey's cooking so much that he had him become his chef in the White House. Because that makes sense.
Yes, and that's just the show. And
crazy antics in the White House. Like, I really do want crazy antics in the White House to work. It was almost there with That's My Bush. It really was, but just there's something that didn't quite connect.
Well, what ended up happening
I guess
was...
I guess it's the political horror. I guess it's just the political horror of knowing that the man who has his finger on the button to the greatest wealth of nuclear weapons in on the history of planet Earth is basically an idiot.
Yeah, no, that's
surrounded by idiots.
That's actually what ended up happening. It just got too real too quickly. People were like, no, Bush is not cute, stupid anymore. Now he's incredibly dangerous, stupid. So the show failed. That's literally where reality met. It's like they started to see.
Let me ask you this. If Bush, and this, I can't believe these words are going to come out of my mouth. If Bush was actually turned out to be an amazing statesman, would that show have worked?
It depends on whether he stayed goofy like that. Like, Bush was an idiot. He can't turn out to not be an idiot. He was inherently stupid.
No, but like he was like if he was like a savant of foreign politics, could that have worked? Like if he caught Osama bin Laden within like a month, and then we took over Iraq and we killed Saddam Hussein, and like democracy magically flourished in a region that's had nothing but political upheaval for decades. If all that actually worked according to his plan, but he stayed like that goofy guy that couldn't figure out how to open a door correctly, would that show have worked?
You know what? I think it might have, only because they could make that part of the show. I think it actually might have worked.
No, that would have been amazing if like Bush, like, you know, that would be probably the greatest thing ever. You know, that's why Sarah Palin needs to be president, because I'm sure.
Well,
have you seen Iron Sky yet?
No, but let me say one thing. It would be great. The Sarah Palin president thing doesn't work because it would be funny for about a year, and then we'd be a smoldering crater, and
actually,
be around the laughing.
This will be a good transition to, you know, the topic actually. But Iron Sky it's hands down one of my favorite movies of 2012 or 2013, whatever it is, because it is just such an awesome premise. It's Nazis from the moon, and Sarah Palin is the president of the United States, and she works out in the Oval Office, and she put all of her, like, you know, her trophies, her hunting trophies, in the Oval Office. So there's like just this gigantic bear just standing behind everybody the entire movie. And there's just some great scenes in there, like you know, UFOs are attacking New York City basically, right? And the world leaders in the United Nations, they're all sitting there arguing with each other about who did this. And the guy from North Korea just stands up and he's like, "We are responsible. These were designed by our great leader." And like everyone's quiet, and then just starts laughing.
That's awesome.
Like, shut up and sit down.
That's true. That's why no one's afraid of North Korea, even though
I'm legitimately terrified that they're going to do something stupid. I'm not afraid that they're like geniuses that are going to take over. No. The North Korea is going to do something. Like, if anything's going to happen, they're going to do something stupid and then start a nuclear war.
Well, here's the
thing.
thing.
They're going to win a nuclear
Korea is
war.
not like. I mean, there's a difference between crazy like North Korea, where we understand that generally. For instance, the reason why people are more afraid of Middle Eastern countries with nukes than they are North Korea is North Korea does not have a concept of like dying for like King Jong-il is evil, but he's not actually, or not King Jong-il, King Jong-un is evil, but he's not actually crazy. He has no concept of like martyrdom, afterlife, so he's not going to do something that gets him killed because he doesn't get to do.
Threat. The threat isn't him getting himself killed. The threat is like they're going to test a weapon and it's going to go wrong because they don't know what they're doing.
Oh, and it's going to hurt them.
Yeah, and then that's going to cause a nuclear outbreak, and then China has to do something.
Well, no,
because they're
won't.
their only ally.
China's not going to do anything. China, again, we're talking about, there's a difference between irrational actors, which is what, the White House is claiming Iran is, and that's why, that's why a lot of people, they're irrational actors. They're not, by the way. Iran is not going to launch a nuclear war and obliterate themselves. Ahmadinejad is not a martyr in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah.
But China is also rational actors. They're not gonna. There's no way in hell. I'm not gonna say they're gonna
start a war, but I think shit's going to go down if North Korea does something stupid, which is
the worst thing that would happen was that we lose a tragedy. South Korea, a tragedy happening in South Korea. Because they've been our allies. They've been democratic for a long time. That would really be sad, if they got they're the ones at highest risk here. We're at zero risk.
Honestly, I'm just saying I'm worried that they're going to do something stupid and people are going to die.
Yeah,
basically, it's going to be a giant. It's going to be a giant dick. Sorry, it's just going to be a giant dick waving contest that's eventually going to get somebody killed.
Yeah, exactly, and that's
that might happen. That would be.
That's the thing is, I'm not
like end the world or anything. North Korea.
No, yeah. North Korea is not going to end the world, nor are they going to take it over. But millions of people are going to die.
Yeah,
is what I'm worried about, and that's not okay. But anyway, let's get back to the topic. Anyway, Iron Sky. So yeah, Nazis from the moon. Great, because you got your old World War II movies, and then you got your alien invasion movies. And it actually, okay, so it's a premise that's goofy, and it's very goofy throughout the majority of it. But then the ending of it is like this actually really apt political commentary, and it just works so well.
Tell us about it.
There's this element called helium-3 that the Nazis on the moon have been using to survive there for the last, 80 years? 70 years. And, so, like, after the giant swastika-shaped Nazi Death Star is defeated by all the nations coming together using their secret military-based spaceships to destroy it, right? After that happens, they find the Nazi stock of helium-3, and all the world leaders are suddenly, like, literally in the United Nations building. And shit, it's not really the United Nations. I think it's the nuclear powers, it's representatives whose countries have nuclear arms, right?
Yeah.
All of them start fighting each other, literally, like, world leaders are, like, punching each other in the face, and Sarah Palin has her shoe off, and she's using her heel to, like, slam a guy in the head, while spaceships are attacking each other, and it's just awesome. And then as the credits roll, you start to see, like, the camera pull away from Earth, and you see nukes flying across the skies, hitting each other. And then at the very end of the credit roll, you see Mars, and you see a satellite pass over. So what I really want is a sequel where we get communists on Mars.
Yeah, you told me about that.
About that, guys, that movie will never be made. Because,
why not?
No. Because there are no communists on Mars.
Well, actually, there's this really old...
they're not. Shut up.
I know. But there's this
doesn't exist. Shut up.
Hold on. There's this really old movie where communists, or cosmonauts, that's the right word, they land on Mars, and...
No, they didn't.
Shut up. Anyway, and they discover a Martian society that's, like, in the slave throes of capitalism. And so they liberate them by teaching them the ways of communism, and the Martians take over and become this great communist, like, this communist utopia. And so I want Iron Sky 2, whatever it's going to be called, or it should be Iron Curtain in the Sky or something like that. I want that to be a sequel to both Iron Sky and that movie, where the Martian communists attack Earth for being a capitalist wasteland.
God, where do you people get this information? God damn it! I thought this was top secret.
Shut up, 7422. No, sorry, it's a reference.
Sorry, I'm a little busy laughing about Milan's stupid joke.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, but I think that's interesting when like, you know, oftentimes these genres crossing are really just something that's kind of novel, like, you know, Cowboys and Aliens. It didn't really say anything, it was just kind of a neat idea for an action movie. But then, like, you get something like Iron Sky, and yeah, sure, it's a novelty, but then they actually used it to say something, which I found really interesting. What do you guys think?
I have to. It's cool.
Go on.
No, you go ahead. I already said it.
You've heard the concept of comeditarianism, basically where it's comedy, but you're making a message. You know, like the difference between Sarah Silverman, who's just pure comedy, and like George Carlin, who
Sure.
Those usually are the best movies, as long as okay. The best times are where it makes a point just in the virtue of what it is. Like, it wasn't... how do I say it? It's not intended to be making a point, but it just does. Just because it's a reflection of our reality. Like the whole Sarah Palin thing you mentioned with our politics. You know, her hitting someone in the head with her shoe. You know, that whether it meant to say something, it didn't have to actively be doing that. Just reflecting our politics does that. Those are usually the best.
I just real quick.
Yeah, go on.
I found it so funny. So, like, basically, the premise is that Sarah Palin is reaching the end of her first term, and she's trying to think of things to do to get reelected. So she starts this campaign called Black to the Moon, where the entire premise is I'll get reelected if I send a black guy to the moon.
Oh my god. And you know what? That's so apropos. That's just so true. She is an example of that. The very fact that she exists is that.
Oh, this is why you shouldn't tell retarded kids they can be whatever they want.
No, I really enjoyed that movie. It's probably one of my favorite sci-fi movies. That's just like such a ridiculous premise, because I mean, it was just an awesome idea to start with. It sounds like something that would be on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it would just be like a cool idea, but they wouldn't do it right. And this is one of those movies where it knows not to take itself too seriously, and it doesn't throughout most of the movie. I mean, they have the meteorite blitzkrieg where giant space zeppelins are throwing chunks of the moon at Earth.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's just cool ideas that, like, with a very loose plot to hold it all together, and then at the end it like surprises you with this really apt social commentary. You know, just this. You know, we kind of are willing to stab each other in the backs for, you know, any kind of fuel source, and you're just like, yep.
Yep, humanity are ruled by fucking homicidal idiots.
Yeah, I don't know. Hold on, I'm gonna talk more about Iron Sky just because fuck it, I love this movie. Anyway, so the fashionista who is trying to help get Sarah Palin reelected, eventually gets to pilot the SS George W. Bush, which has just a cache load of nuclear missiles, like a battleship would, just, you know, warheads, right? And it's just shooting nukes at this, you know, not at these Nazi invaders of the first wave before the Nazi Death Star shows up, and all of a sudden, like, it needs backup, and like all the other countries have weaponized their space probes, so. Like, the only thing that movie was missing is for all the weaponized space probes to combine together to form a giant robot. That's the only thing we needed to happen.
Yes. The true example of humanity coming together is taking all taking all their nuclear weapons, all their weapons of mass destruction, and combining them into one giant weapon of mass destruction, which everyone has an equal part of.
Yeah, in order to fight Nazis. Because that's the thing, really, that the world needs, is we don't have any, like, bad guys that are, like, a legitimate threat. Like, we have terrorists, but, like, we kind of created that problem. And we
Yeah,
have
that's called
Korea,
blowback.
yeah, and we got North Korea, but, like we were talking about, they're not really a threat to the world. They're just kind of idiots.
They're
We don't,
basically
we don't
they're
have
retards.
Nazis anymore.
They're
Like,
retards with.
that's what really the tragedy of the Berlin Wall collapsing really was. Is we lost the world's last bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
We
that's,
had bad guys, the world would be a better place.
Well, there's an expression. If you don't know who the bad guy is, it's probably you. I think we right now are kind of the world's bad guys. Maybe,
I don't know.
maybe
'cause
not in that open, absurd way that, you know.
see,
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
I
I'm just saying.
gotta say
like-
something about this little statement, Ian. Alec. Basically, Russia. I've seen like Zero Dark 30, and there's a scene. It's a really great film, really honest about torture and the murder of women and children in order to catch people that don't matter. But basically, there's a scene in the movie, in the trailer. Basically, it's a American soldier taking a glow stick and popping it open, making it glow, and giving it to a little crying Iraqi girl. But in the movie, that's in the trailer. But in the movie, that soldier had just killed that little girl's mother and father in front of her, and just killed Osama bin Laden. And he's basically, well, he's not. He's about. He wants to ask the girl where he is, and he's smiling, and he gives her a little glow stick, and the girl's just terrified and crying. And he's like, "Here, where's Osama, baby?" And like, this motherfucker just killed her mother and father, and that's what I think America is. It will kill your parents in front of you and then smile. Russia won't do that. Russia will pity kill you.
Yes.
We will not kill your parents in front of you and then smile in your face. We know what we did, and we will kill you so you don't have to grow up in a world without parents.
Yeah.
We're the kings of mercy killings, basically.
Russia, like, we're evil, but we know it. Like
Yeah.
that is kind of the worst kind of evil, where it doesn't realize. Like, you got bad guys in movies, but at least they realize they're evil.
Well, yeah. It's my friend. Well, you James says it best. Evil wears many masks, but none as dangerous as the mask of righteousness. Essentially.
Fair enough, and I don't think America's evil.
But we are the most dangerous. We're certainly nowhere near the most evil. I mean, that's not even a question. But
clearly we're not in the same league as Nazis. But I think kind of like we're bordering on kind of like what Rome was doing, where like we just don't understand the harm we're causing because we're cultured. Fuck those other parts of the world. I'd put America more with. I'd put modern America more with Rome than I would with the Nazis.
It's not
dangerously unself-aware, basically.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then there's the past. What we did to the Native Americans is muddy, because it was clearly wrong, but at the same time that was from ignorance. We just didn't understand that these people didn't know what money was. And those that did understand were clearly the evil people. But the majority of the world didn't get it. That's where the phrase Indian giver comes from. It's a phrase from ignorance, not from, this people always talk about Indian giver, it's like this, asshole kind of phrase. No, it's a phrase from ignorance, really. People didn't understand that Indians don't know what money is back then. Don't know what ownership is.
And they didn't.
How are you supposed to buy something from someone when they have no conception of owning it?
Yeah. No, that's true.
But then America did something again with the slaves, and it's just like, you know what? The Native Americans was a fluke, but let's do just something completely honestly.
No, slavery was around
Yeah.
like well before the Native Americans.
Was it? Oh.
Slavery has existed. That's not like it was a new thing that.
I
Nah,
know,
it just
I
it
thought it was-
continued
I mean,
through
American
to that.
slavery. There were American slaves for decades before we did anything with the Indians.
Yeah, we brought them with us. You know.
I mean, it took a while to get rid of the slaves, even after we, committed genocide. But
To be fair, they just became a lot more of them became specifically black. You know, we had
Yeah,
slaves of different races when when they first came over to America. You know, it just
no, Alec, you guys can say you because you guys have you're mixed blood, so you just can blame me. Well, not me because I'm Russian, so my people had.
I don't know what the hell you're talking
slavery.
about, but
Well, you're black, and so and it's basically.
Juan was trying to make a point about race, but it's just in attempting for some reason not to offend anybody, he got really muddy there. Speaking of which, I said nigga the other day in class, and like, there was only one other black guy there, and he was Jamaican. Well, one black guy there. I consider myself black sometimes. It's weird. And he was Jamaican, and like, you will never live until you, as someone that is not obviously black, say nigga in a room full of white people. You know? Because it just got so uncomfortable for them. Because they didn't know how to respond to it. Because we were having a discussion about when you think in slang. I go, so many times, especially at work, I just think, nigga, please. It's just like hanging out. The sentence, I have black friends, but no, hanging out with black people, you just pick it up because it's used like dude. So it's just, I think that now it's just a word that's in my head regularly now.
yeah.
And so whenever I hear my boss say some really asinine shit, I just go, man, nigga, please, in my head.
Hey, me too. That's neat.
It really
Hey,
is a
don't-
great word.
Oh, it is. But hey, dude, everyone.
I mean,
Let me-
people don't understand the difference between nigga. Nigga, please, is kind of like, the only equivalent to it is when you go, man. That's the only really equivalent to it. But nigga, please just sounds so much better, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, but before we move on, I just want to defend the Russian people. Basically, we did not have slaves because our governments had their own slaves. They were called peasants and gypsies.
That's the same thing. It doesn't matter if you weren't whipped.
Yeah, it's still kind
We
of
were whipped. There was a lot of rape and whipping and murdering. Dude, Lev Tolstoy, fucking one of our greatest writers, he basically in his memoir talks about, oh yeah, I used to just kill fucking serfs for fun. It's like, and then when he became Christian in his old age, he's like, oh yeah, I'm friends with the serfs now. But I'm like,
Come on. I mean, to say that you didn't have slaves, what the fuck was Siberia? It was a work camp.
I know. No, well, we did have slaves, but they were white slaves.
That doesn't make a difference. Race has nothing to do with slavery. I'm Irish. I'm Irish and Hispanic, okay? Both of my races have been slaves.
Well,
Making black people slaves. Black people are just the most recent ones to like have a major portion of their population get out of slavery.
I know. No, but the thing
Only
is,
significant difference
I'm
that
just
they-
saying black people can't blame me for slavery because I come from land where there are white slaves.
Not to mention, you're not old enough to have owned slaves, so I don't know what you
Exactly.
mean there.
You know how people like, some black man just go, oh, you're responsible for slavery. Motherfucker,
No
I
one
came here
does
for
that.
Yes, I
Yeah,
do.
I've never met someone that does that. Like, that seems like something white people just made up to feel better about themselves.
No. Actually, like, Paul Moody does it all the time. But I love Paul Moody, don't get me
Paul
wrong.
Mooney is
He's the-
joking.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's a
right.
comedian. He's exaggerating. Eddie Griffin used to do that too a little bit, but he toned that down too.
Oh,
Just because people can't understand the joke.
Yeah.
oh.
But anyway, let's get to the topic a little bit and try to wrap up on this. I was afraid this was what happened. It's a really interesting topic. It's really hard to say much about it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just so specific. Is the thing, like
Can I talk about? I think I have something to say about how art and how this influences how video games influence how different types of mediums influence video game storytelling.
Oh,
Well, actually, one thing before we talk about that, just to relate it back to another video we did, and I can't believe I didn't think to bring this up earlier. That Handsome Devil. You want to talk about cross-pollinations of genres in music?
oh yeah. Oh man, the Jungle Book thing. I still have that on my MP3 player.
Yeah.
It's not. I love that CD.
Yeah, listen to more of their stuff. It's all like that. It's like, my favorite one of theirs for just random combination of awesome is Damn Door, where they take an old, you've heard Chattanooga Choo Choo, haven't you?
No.
It's an old song, old Glenn Miller bit, right? Big band style song. They take Chattanooga Choo Choo, do a techno remix of it, and it's got a bit of a punk flavor to it. So you've got big band techno and punk in the same song.
Wow.
It's basically an orgy of musical styles.
Yeah, that is a fantastic thing. I wish they had a Twitter so I could tweet that at them.
Oh, they don't. Oh, yeah, that's right. They don't have a Twitter. I'll say, Ian. But by the way, before I forget, you said they kind of, you did like a video response to their YouTube channel, and they kind of make a playlist of all this shit that all the videos that people make about them. Have they accepted R1 yet?
Let me look while we're talking. But you wanted to say something, Milan. So I just wanted to bring up that Handsome Devil. If we wanted to talk real quick about music, genres changing, and that's something that's become more popular. I think techno was really the spearhead of blending genres and music together.
Yeah, but anyway, with video games, I think after I say this, I'm sure Alec will have like a wealth of interesting things to say. But it's interesting. It's interesting how video games have been incorporating a lot of movie storytelling techniques, but they did like an interesting slice and dice thing with them, because with modern video games, with like those long ass blockbuster genre video games, they kind of take, when those movie games they used to make, basically they would just take a movie like, I don't know, like Toy Story or something, and they just have you play as Buzz Lightyear or whatever, the main character from the movie, and they just kind of intersplice the movie throughout the game. It just had nothing to do. It just had nothing to do with the story of the game, if there was one. But they just kind of interspliced the movie because. But it's interesting that with modern games, they've kind of they make their own stories, but they use the blockbuster style. But they also have a weird kind of literary technique where they in most games now they use the gameplay to advance the plot. I mean, you have I'm gonna say Batman Arkham City. They have the cutscenes, and they're interesting parts of the story, interesting movie-like visuals. But the main meat of the story, the very interesting bits, the very interesting slices of meat of the story really happen not in cutscenes, but in the gameplay itself. You are kind of they use
that started, I think, from making the gameplay help you get into the mindset of the character. I think the thing that did that, if not first, but at least very well, was God of War, because it made the combat so difficult and the puzzles so annoying. Especially, goddamn, that stupid spinning spiky tower. Anyway, it made that so difficult that at a certain point, Kratos is this just vessel for rage, and you just start to begin to feel it, because I think I broke a controller the first time I played through God of War, because I just threw it.
Interesting. But my example is, especially my little brother, he absolutely adores the Assassin's Creed games, because he loved God of War, but when he got into Assassin's Creed, he just absolutely loves it. And I think it's an interesting teaching tool to get teenagers interested in history, because after he started playing that, he really told me, like, he started reading the little history books I used to buy, little books of historical facts. He just loved that. he's starting to get really interested in the periods where the game is set, because it's interesting, because in movies when you see like extras in the background and the story is told in a certain time period, it's interesting if it's done well, but you don't spend enough time there to get the feel of a genuine feel of the place unless it's a mini series or something.
Yeah.
But with the game, you're actually walking, or parkour running, on the streets of on the roofs of uh, oh god, what's his name, on the
Roofs of Venice or wherever you are.
yeah, whatever, like Rome, or like running parkour in these medieval settings aside, you really are kind of walking around hearing the dialects of the people talking, in act dress, and you're actually walking around in the time period, and it's really interesting. And the story also helps because it kind of it ties in these historical figures, and it's just really interesting way of getting kids and teens interested in history, because it makes them like with the Django movie. It really another example. They taking these what kids consider like old homework, basically these boring museum pieces, and adding a sense, adding a spice of exploitation to it. Because with Django and slavery has always been this kind of really taboo museum piece that nobody was willing to touch. I'm sure there was like a lot of slavery films, so they were kind of, if they were made by white people, they were really kind of I
wouldn't say no one touched it, Milan.
I mean I know nobody there are some,
what you mean, though, Milan.
yeah,
There's
but
a limit to how much you can explore it. You always have to present it in the same way because it's a very uncomfortable subject. It's
you
don't have a lot of fantasy or non-fiction movies about the Holocaust.
Yeah, exactly. That's why
The Boy in Striped Pajamas got protest
Yeah.
just because it's a non-fiction movie where it takes place in the Holocaust. Like, that was the only criticism of it.
Yeah. But basically, with Django, it kind of
You mean
takes.
fiction movie, Alec?
Sorry?
Did you mean fiction movie?
Fiction. I'm sorry. I meant to say fiction.
We're getting some white noise. We're getting some white noise from you again, man.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, I'm just gonna give my Django is basically it takes this very uncomfortable. Well, it takes the dirty part of history. The America's well, not original sin, but second quote unquote original sin, and kind of chains it, if you will, to. I know the movie Bob already said this, but kind of changes it to America's most whimsical, idealized version of the hero, the cowboy. So you got Django, who is basically a slave, but he's also a cowboy, and you have that. You had some really. See, Tarantino, he didn't need any make up any exploitative violence shit, because all he just did, he read the accounts of slavery and all the horrible shit done to slaves, and suggested that's been done to slaves in that movie. It's all comes from that actually used to happen. I mean, yes, I mean, it just he takes that uncomfortable scariness of history, and he makes it real. He adds that spice of exploitation to it, and makes it I don't just
Milan, I get
makes
where you're
it more
going.
visceral.
I'm sorry, you're kind of talking.
Yeah. But one more thing. It's really interesting that he actually made a black hero. I mean, there's a scene where basically the German doctor, the dentist, tells Django about a story. Basically Brumhilde and Siegfried. This basic Nordic tale about slaying the dragon, getting the princess, and it just kind of points out that in American culture, besides the whole black exploitation boom in the 70s, there really haven't been that many black quote unquote heroes in the general sense. And in this movie, I gotta say, I love this movie because it never made me jump out of my seat. Like no movie just made me jump out of my seat and scream, "Yes, he's alive! He's alive! Whoa!" I it's just like that's why I like Tarantino. He takes these things like these very classic, very quote-unquote, basic storytelling techniques, and he makes them new again. He makes them. It shows why classic storytelling, the hero getting the woman, saving the princess. It works. These classic archetypes works, and all you got to do is just fill in, the blanks. And I just jumped and started screaming in the movie theater when Django basically survived, and just.
Oh, hold up. I haven't actually seen it yet, so
I'm not gonna spoil it, but just Alec, when you see this movie, you're gonna jump and squeal in the movie theater, and people are gonna join you because it's just gonna be like, yes! Oh my god, I love that movie. He's alive!
yeah, that's probably not gonna happen because it's not in theaters. So unless I had a time warp, I think it's.
Let's do the time warp again.
Sorry.
Anyway, no, I don't know. I'm just trying to think more about genres blending together. You were talking about video games, and the guy that made God of War actually made a really good point about why he thinks video games becoming movies doesn't ever really work out. I mean, there are a few that are okay, but by and large, they're really terrible. He says that video games are kind of conglomerations of different things you see in movies done and weaved around the idea of gameplay. And so when you see that in a movie, it just feels really, really contrived and really, cliche.
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't work because it's like it would be like if you, to use a weird example, but I think you'll understand. It'll be like if you converted a movie to 3D and then converted it back to 2D for no reason.
Actually, it's kind of funny because we were talking about this during this, the impromptu Geeky Gentleman live show this week. You can actually buy glasses that will convert 3D converted movies into 2D for you. It'll work on movies that were shot in 3D, but also it'll work on, post-converted 2D movies. So that example itself falls apart, but I know what you were saying.
Wait, why? Oh, no, I meant... No, I understand why you would have those glasses, like if you don't feel like watching 3D. What I meant was...
No, I get what you're saying. I found it funny that example itself doesn't work. But, like, taking that example literally, it does not work.
Yeah, again, we don't do that with anything else. We don't be like, you make a movie out of,
I don't know, like,
a good book, and then you go back and then make that. It's like, what's a movie made from a book? Like Lord of the Rings. It's like, and then you write the book, Lord of the Rings,
no, that
the
happened.
movie, the book.
That happened. You can buy novelizations of the film.
I don't.
That's insane.
Oh,
You did say
okay. Well, that's a little different because they did change the story a little bit.
No, but let me say this. The weirdest one was with Prince of Persia. And let me just start by giving my general thoughts on Prince of Persia. The film is not terrible. It's very kind of, it's a very normal film, alright? But here you have a series of video games that come out on the original Nintendo. And they're alright, nothing's too special, interesting gameplay dynamic. And then they're remade during the PS2 era, and they're really good games. And so based on that, we get a movie. And then a game comes out based on the movie, which is based on the games.
It's
and
true.
then the universe explodes. But I want to mention a little something about movie telling, about different art styles influencing comic book art before we move on. We'll get back to video games eventually, but I want to get this out of the way before I forget it. Basically, it's really interesting when not just movies, but just any sort of artistic movement gets incorporated in storytelling, in comic books and storytelling. The best example I gotta say is, well, Arkham Asylum, A Serious House and a Serious Earth. It's basically surrealist artwork done in a storytelling format, and I'm not sure if that's ever been done. It's like the weird kind of European cinema version of Batman, which is just fascinating to me. But I mean, for those who are not, it with basic dark surrealist works, it's kind of you're not really you only have the opportunity to have this to glean the story from just one image, and even then it's just kind of hard and usually doesn't have a story just to feel how somebody might feel after a tragic event or something like that. But with A Serious House on a Serious Earth, it's just they use that kind of insane style, that insane surrealist style, to create a mood, and that's I never I don't think that actually ever been done before.
Wait, what is this?
It's a Grant Morrison story. It's a
Okay.
serious house, on a serious earth. And basically, when Batman went through, had his, Dante inspired version, trip through hell, but it's actually Arkham Asylum. But it's fascinating when that happens, when you have different artistic movements being incorporated in comic books, and those weird styles being used to create mood and atmosphere. But another great example is Ronin. See, it doesn't really take any sort of, well, it does take traditional manga and the works of Mobius, and kind of creates a really interesting feel, a really interesting visual flair to it. But the story is great, but it's mostly, if it was made into a movie, I guess it wouldn't really stand out all that much. And in late 90s, early, well, I think like mid 80s kind of weird cyberpunk movie. But or maybe like early 90s, I think it wouldn't stand out all that much. But in a comic book format, using like traditional manga, not like the wide googly eyes, but the actual painted art of medieval Japan, and kind of the work, yeah, and the works of a really like the science fiction illustrations of Mobius, for all those art fans, and I guess they know who I'm talking about. But they kind of use this kind of European science fiction style because he's French, and this Japanese art influence, and they kind of combine it with American action movie storytelling, and it's a really fascinating experiment in just visual storytelling, and it's a really fascinating book.
See, that I have to see. Before you go, I typed the name in, so I got the name right.
It's Ronin by Frank Miller.
Oh, you know what? I think my dad showed me that before.
Yeah, it's Ronin as like Master of the Samurai.
Yeah,
it's basically Frank Miller's Ronin. I mean, it's a pretty famous book. I'm sure your dad hasn't. Yeah. But it's fascinating when something like that happens. Especially, I just got a trade of whatchamacallit, Daredevil Born Again, and basically it's a 70s, a grimy 70s movie like The Warriors. Basically, it has this type of feel to it. It has the same sort of genuine grime to it that I love. It's the 80s grime, but it's so incredibly honest, and the characters are so well flushed out. I don't think you were able to do this if this was a movie, because, like I said before, it incorporates the long narrative style of novels, but also the visual style of movies. So you got this really. It's like if you see like a full out, like not the traditional 2-hour movie, but basically a novel illustrated to you in the visuals of not Frazetta. Is it Frazetta? Who am I thinking of? The guy who did Raging Bull, basically.
I don't know.
Well, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver. No, not Taxi Driver. Yeah, this movie reminds me of Taxi Driver. It looks just brilliant. It has that same sort of 70s grind to it.
You and Ian don't watch more anime, because there's an anime called The Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen the way they do the art, where they do it sort of like
it's kind of like a psychedelic and 70s, trippy art.
Yeah, trippy art, and it's actually the story of the Count of Monte Cristo, except
he's a vampire.
yeah, space age, very abstract sci-fi.
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I know. I heard of this series and I want to check it out eventually. But yeah, it's fascinating because with comic books, you have that ability to incorporate different art styles, and yeah, the storytelling techniques is also interesting because I know I've covered mostly the art aspect, of comic books, but I want to talk about a little bit about the storytelling aspect because I'm sure Sid will agree with me on this that comic books in the Silver Age were mostly just whimsical wonder tales, like how most mythology starts out. It's mainly just story tales for kids.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's wrong. Fairy tales start out as mythology, and then eventually, as the society becomes more advanced, they become fairy tales for children. So
Yeah, well, I guess that
yeah,
fairy tale.
yeah, yeah, because they stop seeing these as natural history, but just see them as well, what the old people believe basically. And I think American comic books had the exact opposite, inversed evolution, because comic books, they started out as fairy tales for children, but ended up as kind of a modern day secular mythology.
Mythology, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nah, you're right. That is how it seems to have happened. Um, yes, but see, that's the thing, because like I'm not even uh I'm not even that into Superman, but I respect him the way I would respect, like, you know, what Prometheus. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I respect the character. Like, if someone said, "Would you care if Superman, they stopped making any type of Superman?" It's like, well, yeah, I care. You can't do that. He's Superman. There always has to be a Superman. You
Yeah,
know
he's
what I
the
mean? Like,
first.
he's part of our mythos. While I understand that he's more than just an American story, I personally think he's part of American culture.
Yeah, he's an American immigrant story, which is just really fascinating to me. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, with Superman, with Superman, it's just basically the immigrant's tale. It's just coming from a decimated homeland, trying to start a new life in a place where where you have an opportunity. But Alec, I want to ask you about, what do you think of the newer Bioshock games? Because it
I haven't
seems like,
played Infinite.
well, see, from the trailers, from what you told me of the first two Bioshock games, they seem like really gritty, kind of Art Deco inspired, Iran wank fests. I mean that in the best way possible, by the way.
Iran,
But
wait, Chris. Oh, Iron Ran. I'm like, oh, you said Iran. It's like, yeah, I think we're talking about a different game.
oh, sorry, Iran. And Ran. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her, but they seem like very dark games and very, both in subject matter and storytelling. I,
They are. Well, Columbia, from what I understand about the Bioshock Infinite, is it takes place in Columbia. You know how Washington D.C. is supposed to be the District of Columbia.
yeah,
Whereas Ayn Rand is about objectivism, and then on the not Ayn Rand, Bioshock is about Ayn Randian objectivism, and then the second game's about the polar opposite taken to the extreme, collectivism, Marxism. Um, Columbia is about sort of McCarthyism, incredibly racist, incredibly intense nationalism. That's what Columbia is. It represents the absolute extreme of nationalist. Don't give us your poor, don't give us your downtrodden. They're a parasite, not just a parasite, but they're uh,
they're unnecessary commodity. We have enough of our own to
well,
deal
not
with.
not just that. You know McCarthyism, basically a
Witch hunt.
well, yeah, that was one aspect of McCarthyism. Basically, a general rejection of anything foreign.
Right.
Basically an extreme of American patriotism. Like, we're number
Yes.
one, anything else is inferior, not just
So,
different. You know,
sort of nationalism, basically.
yeah, exactly. It is that's what that is what Bioshock Infinite is about. The
Actually,
extreme
Alex,
of
that reminds me.
nationalism.
Sorry, I'm back now.
Uh,
That
but
reminds me,
uh,
there's a movie that I just saw. It's a mockumentary about what if Hitler survived World War II, and it was so funny because like he managed to infiltrate American government to the point where he was MacArthur's right hand man. No, not MacArthur, McCarthy's right hand man. Um,
Are you
it-
serious?
yeah, it was really funny. Like they had fake video of it and everything. It was amazing. And he
basically,
started Mick Bratwurst. Um,
anyway, Alec, with Bioshock Infinite, it seems like from what I've seen of the first two games, this just seems like a really kind of, well, you got the incredibly cutely designed a girl in Elizabeth, who's your like basically your friend, guide, princess or whatever. It just seems like a really fun and colorful, steampunk romp instead of like a deeper exploration on political theories.
Yeah. Well, what I think is, I mean, it is a little different. See, the thing is I haven't played it, so that limits my ability to.
Have you only
Bill
seen?
loved Bioshock. He's raved about it.
I've played Bioshock, like Bioshock 1 and 2 are the best thing. Again, they're like the best games I have ever played. Just, a man chooses a slave. Okay, I'm sorry, but there's no words again. But I haven't played Bioshock.
There's no words. That's what makes this such a compelling podcast. Dude, I'm doing that. The next time we pick something to review that I have like nothing to say on, I'm just gonna be like, dude, there are no words to describe this, and to prove that, this is the end of the podcast. It's just gonna be the entire episode.
So, interesting. So video games are really on that interactive level of storytelling. Comic books are really kind of the mixture of movie making and literature, and movies and books are just kind of separate animals all unto themselves.
Well, I mean, I think it's important to note that without movies and books, you wouldn't have the genres being created to the point where you think to cross these.
I know that I'm not saying saying that they're any less important. I'm just saying they're just different ways of telling the story.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was gone for a couple minutes, but did anyone bring up Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
No.
I heard about that. I haven't seen it, but I mean, I haven't read it, but I was seriously considering it. You've heard of it, right, Milan?
That seemed like really relevant to talk about for some reason. It's all it is just someone plagiarized Jane Austen and rewrote Pride and Prejudice. They just threw zombies in there.
Instead of the. Yeah, I heard there's sense.
Sense and sensibility and sea monsters.
Yes, that was the other one.
Oh, there's also a Jane Eyre the Slayer.
Jane Eyre the Slayer. See, that one I want to read because I've actually read Jane Eyre. So
it's Jane Eyre the Vampire Slayer. That's cool.
Yeah, she'd make a good vampire slayer. I enjoyed that book. That was a good book.
I'm completely sure that this guy who wrote it is gonna somehow tie it in with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I hope he does.
That'd be okay with me. I'm not a Buffy fan, but that would be okay with me. I just wanted to. It sounds like we're wrapping up, and that's fine. I just wanted to talk real quick about one last thing, if you guys are okay with that.
Oh, sure.
I know neither of you have seen it, but I just finished Firefly recently, and that's the example that's. It didn't start the space western thing, but I think it really Americanized it in a very good way. Which is funny because everybody curses in Mandarin. I just think that's really clever. The future comes and everyone's cursing in Mandarin. Chinese, for those that don't know. But anyway, so Firefly was such an interesting premise of the Earth's resources were used up so people began colonizing and terraforming planets. And in the center of the, solar system or galaxy or whatever that they were terraforming, you have the great, space exploration technology, and it's really usable. But of course, religious fundamentalists and just whack jobs started, populating planets that were further and further out. So you had, and at the further and further out planets, you had less and less technology. So you get these Old West era kind of, technologies on these planets. And so you got spaceships landing, but what is the crew of of Serenity smuggling? Mostly foodstuffs and medicine to help people take care of themselves out here on the terrain. And it's just, there were some really interesting things done with it that I think really does prove the validity of crossing genres, because it's one of those things, like we were talking about a little earlier, it shouldn't have worked, but then it totally did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One little thing about Firefly that fascinates me, incorporating the idea that when you travel faster than light, you stay the same age, but time kind of speeds up around you. So when you get to
time.
yeah. So basically, when you reach a planet far off from the grid, and you deliver a fucking medication, and you go back and it's like back to your supplier, and it's 70 years later, and it's his kid doing the exact...
No, Milan, that never happened in Firefly.
That didn't? That'd be
Unless
interesting.
they did it in the comics.
I don't know.
No, that never happened in Firefly.
That would be interesting if I think that will happen if we don't discover wormhole technology. Because
Yeah, but I mean it's a very interesting potential for a story or whatever. But that's not. I don't know where you got that, but it wasn't Firefly.
Oh well, I just my thought on I just thought that what it was. But
No, I mean they're smugglers, and it's basically a series about Han Solo.
right.
That's what it really came down to. Is if they were ever to make a Star Wars series about Han Solos, it would be very similar to Firefly.
See, that sounds good. I need to watch this. Wow, it got canceled.
Well,
It's
yeah,
on
that's why
DVD.
you need to watch it, because it's over. You can watch all of it now
Ah, that's
without
true.
devoting years of your life to it.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is true.
I do have the DVD at my mom's place. Like the whole
Watch it.
series.
It's really good. Serenity, they made the movie, and I mean, the biggest problem with the movie is it immediately contradicts a big reveal toward the end of the series. So, like literally in the first 5 minutes, it contradicts this major character reveal. But otherwise, it's a really good movie.
Okay, never mind then. I'll check it out definitely. Goodness, yeah. What exactly are we going to be talking about next time?
Oh! Hi! I am Zazibar, and I haven't posted a video in like 2 weeks. Because as you can see, I've been a little bit busy. Anyway, so now that I'm here in front of the camera that has magically turned itself on, I might as well announce something. I unfortunately was not able to make it, excuse me, to this week's recording of Geeky Gentlemen because I was, busy. But I did get to pick the topic for next week, which I will definitely be there for since it's, my topic. And it will be very awkward for Ian and Milan to do an episode of Geeky Gentlemen about this particular topic. On next week's episode of Geeky Gentlemen, we will be reviewing 3 movies under a very familiar title and discussing a character that's shocking that we haven't discussed before, at least devoted a video to him. Next week on Geeky Gentlemen, we will be reviewing 3 Godzilla movies. We will be talking about Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and finally, Mothra vs. Godzilla. 3 films, each one to represent an era in Godzilla's history. Why we haven't reviewed a Godzilla movie before? Well, because we were waiting for this moment. When, I don't know, the stars aligned and the angels sang and the monsters rose from the depths to try and destroy us all. And the red moon set and the sun rose in the west. 2 monsters arose to try and save the world. Those monsters are your geeky gentlemen. So I hope you'll join us for this little adventure we'll be taking. An hour and 14-minute adventure, but an adventure nonetheless, when we review 3 Godzilla films. I'll see you there on Geeky Gentlemen.
That should be interesting.
Yes, that is a really deep philosophical idea on the nature of man. Really interesting.
Yes, I agree. I can't wait. I mean, we're gonna have so much to say.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We're going to have that special guest coming up too.
Oh yeah. Damn, I can't wait for him to come on.
I know, it's gonna be amazing. Like, I think this is probably gonna be our best episode ever.
Hopefully, yeah. Like, well, there's no hope involved. Yes, this is this is gonna be a fact. This is gonna be the best thing we will ever make.
Hands down.
Yeah. Anything else we make after this episode will be shit compared to this. You know what we will create. We will create the pinnacle of internet podcasting.
Like, I don't even think it's gonna be like that. Like, just us. I think this is going to be the greatest thing that humanity has ever produced. Like,
well, I'll have to agree with you.
It has been leading ever since the creation of the universe, 14 billion years ago. It has led up to this moment.
Yes. The human race, the creation of God, will peak at this podcast, and then it's just all downhill from there.
Yeah, pretty much. So, until next time, we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Goodbye.